Hey folks, this is Brian. We got to play in Elderath last night. So this is my session review, thoughts of West, that kind of thing. So trying to keep the calendar up to date. This is Lorvain, which is the fourth month, which is summer. It's the fourth week of the 5 weeks of the month, and it's day 5. Veldor. So Toth and Alexander, having lost that trail in the woods, they head back to the village, and Toth's trying to remember that scent. They head south and run into some village buildings, and there's a road there or a path, and they take that west towards the church. Wes and Raymond, we headed towards the road because we're actually south of the church. We just go west towards the road, and then we head up north to the church. As we get there, we notice there are several horses out in front. A large number of people behind us coming up the road as well. The local militia here is made up of the villagers. So it's a retired soldier who's the captain of the militia. They call him the sheriff, but he's not really legal, but they use him for that as well. That's all organized by the village elder. There's also Rufus's guard at the keep. And there's evidence here that both organizations are present. Okay, so we get to the church. The acolyte there is still guarding the door. And he motions us forward. He's been letting people in, though, which makes some sense, but I thought the point was to keep people out. But anyway, he motions us forward and explains that the sheriff and Gundygoot and the captain of the guard are here. Raymond goes about setting up stuff for morning services, so I go ahead and I head up to the priest's office where he was killed. And in the hallway there is Gundygoot and one of the keep guards. Oh, sorry. Before I get there, at the bottom of the stairs is the other acolyte. And he's looking really concerned. There's a bunch of people out in front, and I confront them. They try to confront back, and I, say, hey, if you want answers, go talk with Raymond. Leave the poor acolyte alone. Acolyte thanks me and does say, hey, Raymond is there. He's probably going to give answers. Go see him, kind of thing. He thanks me and says, hey, they're upstairs, probably waiting for you. So I go up. And Raymond is set on continuing things as much normal as possible, in spite of everything that's going on. When Raymond enters the hall where everybody's been gathering, they all start turning on him. Brother Raymond, dear brother, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. And, all kinds of questions about the priest's death, etc., etc., etc. While that's going on, I made my way up to the priest's office. Inside the office is Oliver, who's the captain of the militia. No, Oliver, who's the captain of the militia, the sheriff guy. And there's also Henry, who's the captain of the guard. They're inside the priest's office. As I walk in, as I go up, Gundygoot kind of stops me and asks me, what would you find? What happened? What's going on? And Oliver inside, when he says that, says, let the man in. So I get around Gundygoot and I walk in. The captain of the guard seemed a little surprised that it was me, that I was there. But I walk in, I pour myself a glass of wine, sit down, and tell them we have a puzzle here. And I put in the window, says we found a trail. It went out the window, across the roof, down the other side. We found tracks down to the bottom of the church, and that went off into the woods. A couple of my compatriots are still out trying to follow that trail because it went down. The cliff faces back here, and there's just the one path, so it looks like somebody came this way and then went back that way. And I believe it was Oliver who said, it's disturbing that the young boy died the same day. What young boy? They say one of the laborers was discovered drowned on the water wheel. Looks like he fell in and got caught on it. So we got 2 deaths now. Toth and Alexander, as they get back to the village and they're passing the mill, they see a group of people gathered, to the immediate south by the stream itself. So they go investigate, what's going on. And somebody says, it looks like Jason was out fishing or swimming, who knows, but he got caught up in the water wheel and drowned. They have pulled the body out. He's been laid down. He's covered up. They did find his fishing gear on the other side over by this large log there. This seems to be a fishing hole because there's kind of a pond area before the mill. So Toth makes a cursory look over the body and then over at the log. Don't find anything. There's several tracks around the log, so obviously it's a place that everybody comes and goes to do fishing. He does do his little scenting thing, and there is a faint reminiscence of the same scent that we had been following on the trail. So at that point, they start heading towards the church. Back in the priest's office, Henry and Oliver talk, and I quite agree, this is incredible. We discuss a bit more, and I say, my compatriots should be getting back soon. I recommend we wait for them just to find out what they were able to find. And so they agree to wait. So we're just, chatting and stuff. Gundegoot announces their arrival, and Henry asks, what did you discover? Toth explains they saw the boy, and they relate that the scent they were following is the same person, has been in both locations. And Oliver, how do you know that? He says, I can smell it. You smelled it? Magical senses. And the guy says, maybe we should check the boys' room. And then everybody looks at him and goes, well, that's obvious. So everybody except for Brother Raymond heads on out. As we bypass the acolyte that's been guarding the way up to the priest's office, I tell Brother Raymond where we went. We're going to the camp. Back with Brother Raymond in the church, everyone obviously very disturbed, but he holds a quick service, and he does greet some of the people as they are departing, that kind of thing. He kind of hustles them along a bit, but he's not going to wait for everybody, so he decides to depart. And as he's doing that, the acolyte, one of the acolytes, explains to him that a boy also has died, and that we went to go check out his lodgings at the camp. Raymond thanks the acolyte, and then he goes to do initial preparations for the priest's body for burial. Then he gets a horse, the church has horses, and goes to go find us. At the camp, it's a gypsy camp. There are gypsy-like wagons. There are some temporary buildings and tents and such. I have thought at this point that there were like maybe 2 or 3 groups of people here, but it turns out it's just one group, which will change a few things later on. Obviously, the feeling here is dour with the death of the boy because he was from the camp. The gypsy elder there greets us, and he is surprised, about us coming. And Henry, this is what we want to see where the boy was billeted. And the elder looks a little puzzled, but says, come follow me. Oliver asks if the boy had any family here. No. In fact, the boy joined the group here just 6 months ago. One of the families took him in. He was an orphan from Alton. Now, Alton is way, way south of where we are. And there are at least 2 or 3 major, not necessarily cities, but, villages, towns along the way. So it seems really odd that an orphan would come from that far south to come to Hamlet, of all places, to do construction. So I'm thinking something else is going on. But we go to check out his wagon. Excuse me, my goodness. So Oliver and Henry in the village, they go into the wagon, and they're looking around. And eventually Oliver kind of sticks his head out, looks Toth, taps his nose, and so Toth goes up in the wagon as well. He does his little scenting thing and identifies this is the same scent. This scent has been at all 4 locations. This room, log by the fishing pond, the church and the priest's room, and the trail we followed through the forest. So they do another searching through the room, and they find a dagger. And Henry says, and it's marked. And Henry says, hey, that is the mark of the Thieves Guild in Telgar. And so Henry starts asking more questions of the village elder, about how new he was, did he have any friends, any family. No, apparently this guy, though, spent most of his time in town helping folks. He was a skilled carpenter. At that point, Henry says, hey, it's time to see Rufus. So at this point, Raymond is finished up preparing the body and turning everything over to the acolytes. He commandeers a horse and he heads towards the camp. He's come to the camp. We're crossing the road of the tower, so we all get together. We do a little quick whisper, catching everybody up on what's going on, some of our theories and possibilities. Is this boy simply a connection, or is he the cause? We get to the keep. Henry updates Rufus on everything we discovered. He asks us if we have anything to add. Then he turns to Oliver and Gundagoot and says, we'll continue this investigation. If anything comes to light, let us know. You are excused. So they leave, and then he turns to us. What did you find at the moat house? Okay, so we explain what happened. When we get to the symbol of the eye thing and all the armor and clothing and stuff, Raymond does some kind of recall spell thing and then draws out the symbol as best he can, but with perfect recollection of what it looked like. Rufus does recognize the symbol. He says, there's a cult it's symbolic of a cult that worshipped Forge. I don't know if I mentioned Forge in any of the other ones, but Forge is this ancient lich who, like 500 years ago, was destroyed in a massive war. Everybody ganging up back against him. There was a coalition of humans and elves and lizard men, I think. So I mentioned my idea that this vampire had been some kind of nasty fight. I was thinking it might have been the high priest from the church who's missing for a week. But the vampire did some kind of a nasty fight. Damaged so much they had to drain 9 people, a griffin, and an ogre, and they had to rest for an unknown number of days before he was strong enough to depart. Rufus says we need to let Lord Kirk know about one of his griffins was found. And Alexander, thinks the vampire, after took off, went east. Rufus tells us he's going to send information both to Kirk and to Telgar. He's going to request for a replacement priest. He mentions that I believe Robert Bolton, His Holiness, will be traveling through in the next month, though. This situation may speed that up. Please, stay here in the area. There appears to be more happening at the moat house. You're excused, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we depart. We head to the church so Raymond can write a letter to the church, and where we can rest together and watch each other's back, kind of thing. After that's all done, we head to the inn that evening. It's packed. Everyone is there, and everyone's talking about the murders. Everybody's pretty sure the boy was also murdered. Either he saw something, or he was the killer and was murdered for it, and some people are saying, no, he was just fishing and he drowned. That happens on occasion. And there's no connection whatsoever. He's a good boy. Eventually, though, talk gets around to what we found in the moat house. We're talking about all the giant carnivorous frogs and the giant snakes and giant lizards and giant ticks. And the little boy peeps around and asks, did we see a black dragon? And I look at him and say, no, have you? He says, yes. I said, when? I said, last night. And at that point, somebody kind of grabs him and shoos him out, out of the inn, presumably back home. So after that all calms down, we start heading back to the church. Again, so we can all, camp out together at the church and watch those back and that kind of thing. And as we get to the ford, Raymond drops to the ground. I dodge off to the east. He fell to the southwest. So I jump off to the east. I'm looking north. I try to do this projected light thing. It didn't work. And Alexander says, well, before I do that, Alex says, it came from there, over there. He's pointing to the northeast. So that's why I dodge off that way. Alexander takes off across the ford. And Toth dives down onto poor Raymond, who took a crossbow bolt to the head. Holy cow. I think it was a heavy crossbow bolt at that. Luckily, he's not dead outright. So after I do my dodge, projectile light didn't work. I cast it, attempt to cast again, successful. So I've got this beam of light like a flashlight shining out. It only goes for 50 feet, and we're looking at like 100, maybe 150 to the where we think the shot came from. But I'm just looking for shadows. So I'm projecting light out there, just looking for shadows. I'm not seeing anything. I start following the stream, checking north and east, north and east. Once I pass the mill, there's a small group of trees. When I get through the trees, it's pretty much open, and then there's the bluff. So at that point, I'm looking a little bit north, but mostly east, and maybe a little south. Nothing. So I start heading back. Alexander ran up the road to where he saw the bolt coming from. There's actually some buildings there. I believe it's the horse guy. There's a hedge, so he's looking around. He's not seeing anything. So he goes between the hedge and the building and heads behind the building and starts headed northish and is tracking or paralleling the way I went, but further north of the stream. Oh, while I was using my projected light trying to see if anything out there, the guy at the horse place comes out. There's two of them. Somebody in front with a shield, somebody behind with a sword. Hey, what are you doing out there? I told him to shut up and get back inside. And we're doing our thing. Toth attempts first aid, took him a couple times just to stabilize him, make sure he stays alive, stop the bleeding kind of thing. And then he remembers about the healing potion the church gave us, so he pours one down his gullet and then pours another one into the wound. Raymond seems to be out of trouble. He's still unconscious. So Toth, hefts him up and it goes to carry him to the inn, going in through the back door. The staff surprised that they're coming in, but there's Gundagoot and his wife. They clear off a table, make a triage, and they do some more first aid on him. After a bit, the sheriff will show up with his son, who's wearing mail and a steel cap, iron helm, and has a crossbow. Eventually, Raymond will come conscious. The sheriff asks what happened. Toth relates, while that's going on, Toth and the sheriff are talking. He relates what happened. When and where does this happen? Just a few minutes ago at the ford. So the sheriff and his son, they take off back with a lantern. They're coming up to the ford as I'm coming around, so we kind of meet up at a bend in the stream. I explained, we went all that way looking stuff, couldn't find anything. And we're at the point. Alexander says the shot came from right over there. So we find some rocks, get across the stream. We meet with Alexander and search the area. I create light, area light. See, that doesn't help. The sun spots some tracks are hidden between the hedge and the building, but that's obviously Alexander. So we don't find anything, so we head back to the end. Okay, so Raymond is up. We discuss our options. We examine this crossbow bolt. It is steel-tipped and looks exactly like the crossbow bolts we found in the moat house. Raymond asks if there are any kind of magic that can invoke connections by symbol or by name. And I recall from my training, there is a school of magic which contemplated that everything has a true name. And if you knew someone or some thing's true name, it gave you power over them or it. But as far as I know, it's not taught. More importantly and locally, why would anyone with that level of power have any interest in us? So, is it possible? Yes. Do I know anyone? No. This is legendary type magic. Maybe the ancient Lich Lord, possibly. A powerful vampire. Maybe the Lich Lord of this vampire don't want anybody to know about the information we found and it getting out. And so everybody's been sending information out of Hamid has been killed. The priest who was writing a letter is dead. We who knew about it were almost killed, or at least Raymond, who was going to be sending a letter out as well. He did write a letter to let the church know about what was going on, that he gave to Gundy Goot to send on the post when the carriage comes through. But Gundy Goot is okay for now. So we start questioning, well, what about Rufus? Because he was going to send that word too. So it is late. But we head over to the tower to check on Rufus. There's a card. He calls the guard up on top, calls out for us. Toss tells us there was an assassination made on us tonight. It's possible that Lord Rufus may be in danger. So after a few minutes, Henry comes down. We tell him about what was going on and our hypothesis about people being assassinated or killed. And he seems to take our concerns seriously, but he relays to us, don't worry about Rufus and Burns. They're both okay. But he does call for an increase in the guard as he goes back in. We head back to the inn. We get to the inn. Gundy greets us on our arrival, and he makes rooms available. I already have one. I paid for it for the month, so I'm not worried about that. But, rooms for everybody else. The next morning is now day 6, which is Quain of week 4. In the morning, we head to the church after a late breakfast. Raymond takes care of business, prepping for the funeral, etc. And then we go and we investigate the crossbow area. Nothing. Then we then search along the north side of the stream after the lake pond thing where the mill is. Well, after the pond or the mill, there's kind of a lake. Maybe the stream splits in two because there's like a little island in the middle. But my idea is to look for tracks from last night, from yesterday, from the assassination, that kind of thing, right? So we're searching the north side of the stream. It's kind of straight after the lake until it hits the butte and then goes south around the butte or the bluff. We do find some tracks from south of the stream, crossing the stream and going north around the butte. So we follow them. It goes in the forest. It starts to zigzag, and then it comes upon some deer tracks, and then it's following the deer tracks. So we follow along. Eventually, we notice a young woman with red hair who has a deer strung up, and she's gutting it. Oh, okay. So that's what that was. So we head back to the camp. Don't bother her. And we asked the elder. When we were out last night, I was trying to keep track of the time with the moons and stuff. So we meet with the elder, and I asked him, hey, did anybody at such and such a time, it's roughly midnight, the moon here, the moon there kind of thing. Yeah, there are 2 moons here. Come back to camp last night about this time. He asked the guard. They wrote, no one came or left last night. I do see the boy talked about the black dragon hiding behind a tent. And then as he sees it, I see him. He disappears behind it. So we mosey on around the tent, look around back behind. He's not there. In fact, he's nowhere around. We actually, hello in the tent, and the guy comes out. What do you do? We're looking at this little boy. He's hiding back there. Did you yeah, I don't know anything about that. He's not here, and there's nobody in the tent either. So, in fact, the man actually went around back to look to see what we were talking about. But he's nowhere around, and he's not in any of the groups of the children that we can see. So Toth goes over to one of the groups and talking with the children. We find out, children. Asking about this boy. No, we're not allowed at the inn. Okay, so Toth bribes the children if anybody knows where he could be with a copper piece kind of thing, and a girl kind of walks up and says, if anyone knew anyone who might know someone, I could tell them. And then she holds out her hand. Toth gives her the coin. She runs off, and everybody starts chasing after her. Toth gets involved with the camp, and, finds somebody who's doing some labor that he can do and starts helping them out, and then starts asking questions about their tribe and their clan histories and that kind of stuff. So we get some information to them, some tales of what's going on. Alex and I just kind of sit back and watch him, watch around, flirt with the girls, and watch his back kind of thing. Okay, Raymond, back at the church. That concludes all of his tasks there. He heads to the inn. And he's, sitting back, just listening to the rumors and stuff, the discussions that are going on. He hears a harp out front. And in front of the inn. So he goes up to investigate. There's a guy lounging in the back of a wagon playing the harp. Raymond pulls out his flute and attempts to do his play flute thing, the same song that the guy with the harp's playing, and he got special success. Raymond does recognize the voice and music. He's heard this guy before in Telegar, but doesn't remember who his name is. Ask him, what brings you to Hamlet? I'm just passing through. Where are you headed? South, to where the music takes me. What news do you have at Telegar? The ships, they come and go. There are juicy bits about pesky places to the east. There's this guy named Kane who's taking on the pirates out of Aklo. Some deal with some baron or duke or whatever in Kars. Raymond then invites him, to stay a few days at his expense, and mentions it's too bad you head south because I have word that needs to get to Telegar. Are you headed to Castle Kirk? I could give you a letter of recommendation or an letter of introduction. This guy looks a little dubious at him, but they play and they chat while they're waiting for us to show up. We get back to the inn and I asked Gundagoot about the boy. There was a boy here last night? And I describe him, ask if it sounds familiar. No, not at all. Okay, so we just compare our notes with Raymond, discuss the options about the boy, and sweets be better than coin and getting the children to help us out. But place starts to pack up as the night goes on. The musician gets out and he starts playing. I recognize him from a place in Telegar called the Flaming Sands. And the Flaming Sands is not a family establishment. And I happen to know that this guy, Brand the Bard, has some command of sound and illusions, but he's not doing any of that here. Alexander also recognizes him because he plays at Castle Kirk, but he didn't know where he's from. But the guy is a pretty good musician. He's also in the company of a rather large fellow named Squalo. He's big, but not very smart. Okay, the next morning, we have no events, so we take like a week off so we can do our skill checks. So it's now day 5 of week 5, the last week of the month. It's Veldor. So my gear during this week, my gear arrives from Telegar in addition to a number of personal letters from ladies who are wondering what I'm doing and when I'm coming back. And we take care of some more issues. I asked the carpenter to build me an armor tree so I can stage my armor in my room here. I meet with Burns, ask about translating these scrolls. 2 of them are in an ancient lizard language. They seem to be prayers for healing. The third that's dark stuff. You should destroy it. And then the iron scale burning that we got in the moat house. Alexander tries to get it fitted for him. He meets with the blacksmith who is also a weaponsmith, but not an armorer. But he tells us that the leather worker has done armor in the past. So he goes to the leather worker, and the leather worker says, look, it's beautiful. That's steel. You don't want to destroy it by shrinking it down because we got to cut it way down to make it fit. Alexander's pretty light. But he eventually agrees to do that. And at the end of that week, everybody's talking about a griffin. A griffin has landed at the keep. Okay, so it's now day 6, which is Quain of Wake 5, and we are summoned to the tower. As we get there, we can see the griffin in the field. It had to kill the deer, and it's kind of got a paw on it, resting on his body, but it's not currently eating. He'd eaten enough already or something. But we get to the hall. There's Rufus and Burns and Henry and one of Kirk's men. Alexander, this guy is familiar. This guy is familiar to Alexander. Rufus tells us that Lefric. These are turns out Lefric. These are the gentlemen that I mentioned earlier. He smiles and nods. This Lefric guy smiles and nods at Alexander and then addresses all of us. I understand you encountered a griffin at the moat house. Kirk has asked me to inquire further. And he looks at Alexander, waiting for a response. And Alexander describes our encounter with the griffin and the vampire. Lefric asks Alexander if the vampire ever looked at him. And Alexander, as far as I remember, his back was to us. And he relays the encounter as best he can. Lefric says, you did not see a saddle, but the griffin had marks of one? Yes, that's exactly it. And then I tell my point of view about the claw marks on the stairwells, that maybe the griffin was pulled down before it was dead, kind of thing. And then Lafric tells Rufus he doesn't have any further questions. And Rufus says, asks us to please step out. They'll be out in a few moments. We go out with Henry, Smoke and Joke. Eventually, Lafric and Rufus come out, and Rufus says, Lord Frick would like to view the body of the griffin. You will escort him in the morning. We'll see you in the morning. And then he goes back into the tower. Or they go back to the tower. Okay, it's the next day. There it is, yeah. The next day, Lafric has arranged for a wagon and a small group of militia to guard our camp. That camp that's outside the swamp. Raymond gathers up 4 more healing potions and distributes them around, so we each have one. And then we head to the moat house. Takes a couple days. There's that camping spot that we'd seen before that we didn't use. So we set up camp there, and we're chatting with Lafric. He's kind of surprised that we didn't stay up here on the high ground because everywhere else is kind of stinking, all that kind of stuff. Things we found out in hindsight. But we find out that the moat house was built on an older keep. And at one point, there wasn't even a swamp here at all. It became a swamp near the end of the war with Forg. There's lots of powerful magic that was released here. The first keep actually sunk into the swamp. I kind of imagine that it might be interesting to find ways down the lower levels, and the Frick says, that's what I'm afraid to happen. Forg had vampires and other beings were thought to be chained up or imprisoned. Now, my concern is that these people that you ran into, these 9 dead guys, somehow broke into the lower levels and released something. And I started thinking, that's right. Maybe the vampire had been so starved, instead of being wounded, once he released, he needed all that blood to recover. Lafric kind of questions, were these guys sent here to unleash this thing? Or were they simply sent here and then unwittingly released it? And we finished up setting camp. It is now week 5, day 9, Tall. Last day of the week, last day of the month. Happy gaming.